live
start.
Only he didn't have something going on the side.
Sean, if you want to grab us,
Sean, I would shoot myself to have more than one.
I know Bill's.
Ready?
Yeah. All right, let me call the meeting to order. It's slightly past 7 p.m. and welcome to our Mr. Bruce. I'm glad to see people are dressed in appropriate summer clothing. Let me grant permission to Westwood Media Center to live stream and videotape the meeting. And I want to ask, is there anybody else who wants to record the meeting? Seeing that, I'd like to welcome all members. I guess our main presenter tonight will be our wonderful town clerk. And so I want to thank you for coming, keeping us all honest with the open meeting law. But let's start by doing the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
They at least still teach that to kids.
All right, now we need to do the member roll call, which I will ask Victoria to do.
Bill Bruce.
Here.
John Cary's not here. Jim here, Jim Ferrero. Lauren Fitzpatrick. Here. Seth Fredrickson, our newest member, is not here. Mike Gay.
Here.
George Hertz.
Here.
Angela Hughes. Here. Caitlin Jersak. Here. George Laham.
Here.
George Moran.
Here.
Christina Pettichewicz isn't here. Chris Peretta.
Here.
Sean Weller.
Here.
And Alex Yell is absent too.
Okay, Norm, I just want to, we will welcome again Seth Fredrickson, who could not be here, but over the summer, Chris Peretta, as part of our mentoring program, met with him to bring him on board. And I think Chris is going to talk a little bit later on in our meeting about the onboarding document we put together for new members that we've sent out. So at this point in time, I'm going to turn it over to Dottie. I have more comments I will make under the chair's update, as well as Chris will have some comments too. But right now, let me welcome Dottie and thank her for coming, and congratulations on your new granddaughter.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I always enjoy coming to this group, and thank you all for all the hard work you put in throughout the year. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go through this quickly because I think most of you are here, you understand about the open meeting law, but it's really important, and you guys do a great job, Victoria, with posting and your agenda items. So let's just go through this. So the open meeting law basically recognizes the necessary balance between government accountability and government efficiency. It ensures transparency by public bodies requiring notice, open deliberations, and public access. Open meeting law definitions. A meeting is a deliberation amongst a quorum of a public body to discuss matters within the jurisdiction of the body. Deliberation is an oral or written communication through any medium, including electronic mail, between or among a quorum of a public body on any public business within its jurisdiction. Quorum is a majority of the full complement of members of a multiple member body. For example, you're a Finance and Warrant Commission, you're a 15-member board. In order to vote on anything, you have to have a quorum, which is really 1/2 plus 1, so you need 8 people to constitute a quorum. A public body is a multiple member board, commission, committee, subcommittee within any city, region, or town, however created, elected, appointed, or otherwise constituted, established to serve a public purpose. There are 3 major issues that legal requirements that the open meeting law addresses. The first one is the notice. This is really important. Timing, posted no later than 48 weekday hours, not to include weekends or holidays. The location, it must be posted in a location accessible 24 hours a day, including the website, and the meeting must be held in ADA accessible locations. The level of detail must list specific matters to be discussed reasonably anticipated by the chair of the public body. There should be no acronyms, include executive sessions if applicable, and avoid any shorthand references. Number 2 is purpose, presumption for open session, limited authority to meet in closed executive session. And minutes is the third issue. Minutes should be the content specific enough to allow someone who was not present to know what was discussed. Timing, within 3 meetings or 30 days, whichever is later. Approval in accordance with the above timeframe, either the body or a designee thereof. Deliberation is an oral or written communication through any medium, including electronic mail, between or amongst a quorum of a public body on any public business within its jurisdiction. It excludes distribution of meeting agenda, scheduling or procedural information, distribution of reports or documents to be discussed, provided no opinion of a member of the public body is expressed. Subquorum, if no subcommittee and no serial communication, and discussion of the recess or continuance of a town meeting in the event of a weather-related or public safety emergency. Now, this is really important. Deliberation with email. It's now explicitly addressed in the open meeting law because there has been a lot of issues, not here, but statewide. A quorum may not use email to share their ideas, feelings, opinions, beliefs, whether serially or in single email, on board business, and may not use a non-member to avoid the law. Practical approaches to avoid these violations: beware of reply to all on emails, limit the use of email to scheduling purposes, and try to avoid using email to undertake town business. Assume that email may be forwarded to unintended recipients and therefore limit the content to business matters. Be prepared to read email in local newspaper or blog. And there are many times that we've had public requests lately and they do ask for email, so, always think before you put something in an email. Do not ask for or express opinions, ideas, feelings, belief, or impression in an email to other members. And also be thoughtful about the manner in which your comments are made. There is another avenue, social media deliberation. Social media is also subject to the open meeting law. Alternative electronic communications have become more prevalent, including blogging, instant messaging, texting, social networking, such as Facebook, Snapchat, and Twitter. Practical approaches to avoid these violations: do not direct comments to other members of a body. If a matter directly involves an issue pending before a body, consider not engaging. And be thoughtful about the manner in which comments are made. Remember that applicants have due process rights. If a board member is involved in a matter adjudicating the rights of others, only discuss the matter at a hearing. Meetings is a deliberation by the public body with respect to any matter within the body's jurisdiction. Practical approaches to avoid violations. If attending a meeting of another body or social event, avoid creating the appearance that a body is discussing municipal business. If you're attending a site visit or a meeting of another body, post a follow-up meeting of a board or committee if members anticipate that they want to discuss matters amongst themselves or respond to matters raised. If a member wishes to speak at a posted meeting of another public body, the member should be clear that the member is not representing their public body, but instead speaking as an individual. Or the best thing to really do, if you're all going to be going to a meeting, post it as a joint meeting to be held at the same time in the same place. Meeting exceptions: provided no opinions of the governmental body are expressed, attendance or distribution amongst a quorum will not constitute a meeting or a deliberation, which excludes a meeting distribution to the public body by a member of a meeting agenda, scheduling or procedural information, reports or documents that may not be discussed at an upcoming meeting, so long as the material does not express the ideas, feelings, beliefs, and opinions of a member of the body. Attendance at an on-site inspection provided there's no deliberation. Attendance at a public or private gathering or social event. Attendance at a posted meeting of another public body communicating only by open participation on matters that they are that are under discussion and not privately amongst themselves, and town meeting. This always has a little bit of confusion, what a subcommittee is. A subcommittee is any multiple member body created to advise or make recommendations to a public body. The intent to create a subcommittee is not required or determinative. The Attorney General looks to three factors in determining if a group constitutes a subcommittee. Is it within government, empowered to act collectively, and serving a public purpose? A practical way to avoid violations with a subcommittee: one person does not constitute a subcommittee. In a conservative approach, when two or more members are asked to accomplish something together, post meetings and comply with the open meeting law. And note that committees created by a sole officer, for example, the town administrator or school superintendent, they have the authority to act independently. They are excluded from this. For example, if a superintendent is appointing an advisory board for the nomination of a school principal, it doesn't have to be posted, it doesn't have to be created as a subcommittee. Scheduling meetings, accessibility. The location of the meeting must be in the notice. The location of the meeting must be accessible and required both by open meeting law and ADA. And practical considerations include ability to meet at privately owned location, moving meeting to a different location in the same or different building, and closing the door during open sessions. So those are things that you really should not be doing. On March 29th, 2023, Governor Maura Healey signed into law a supplemental budget bill, which also extended the temporary provisions pertaining to the open meeting law through March 31st, 2025. Specifically, this further extension allows public bodies to continue to hold meetings remotely without a quorum of the public body physically present at a meeting location, and to provide adequate alternative access to remote meetings. The language does not make any substantive changes to the open meeting law other than extending the expiration date of the temporary provisions regarding remote meetings from March 31st, 2023 through March 31st, 2025. So if it ever came up, you're still allowed to have a Zoom meeting. Notice, practical considerations. It must be posted no less than 48 weekday hours, excluding weekends and legal holidays, on official posting location. Topics should give enough specificity so that the public will understand what will be discussed, including executive sessions. And matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair must be added to the agenda after posting deadline to any extent feasible. The updated agenda must show the time and date of the update as well as a change to the agenda. Matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair may be discussed and acted upon. However, the Attorney General really prefers groups to put this off to later meetings to include the posting, because when you do this, sometimes you open yourself up to an open meeting violation, which you don't want to do. What if, notice common concerns. What if a new topic arises after the notice is posted? Public bodies are encouraged to update the notice when made aware of a new topic within the 48-hour period before the meeting. Chairs should not post notices so far in advance that there is a high likelihood that new topics will arise. And what if the town clerk cannot post the notice in time? So you really should be sending your notices during town hall hours. If the notice comes and we close at 4:30 during the weekdays, then it's not posted until the next business day, and that could create a problem with not enough time. If you're going to cancel a meeting, they do not require a 48-hour notice. Meetings that are continued or canceled and rescheduled must comply with all notice requirements of the open meeting law. So let's just say that you didn't finish your business one night. To have another meeting, you're going to have to follow the open meeting law requirements and do the 48-hour notice. There's other laws that may apply to public hearings, which is also different than this. Now, there is remote participation. The Attorney General's regulations permit remote participation in certain circumstances. Members of public bodies are encouraged to physically attend meetings whenever possible. All members of town boards and committees should make every effort to attend meetings in person. A public body member may participate remotely if that member's attendance would be unreasonably difficult. The Board of Selectmen did authorize the adoption of this regulation in January of 2012, so that remote participation would be permitted for meetings of all local public bodies within the municipality, and that it would be an infrequent event. You have to notify the chair at least 40 hours in advance. The chair will make a decision to allow or not to allow remote participation. It shall be final and not appealable. Remote participation is allowed by telephone, internet, satellite, enabled audio or video conferencing. Prior to the meeting, the chair should make every effort to ensure the equipment is available and functioning properly. If the required equipment is not available, then the chair should deny the request for remote participation. Distribution of documents. At the start of the meeting, the chair will announce the name of any member who will be participating remotely, and this information shall also be recorded in the meeting minutes. A quorum of the body, including the chair, shall be physically present. Members of the public body who participate remotely and all persons present at the meeting shall be clearly audible to each other as well, per Mass General Law. All votes shall be called by roll call vote. Members may participate remotely if they are not qualified to vote. Remote participants shall preserve the confidentiality of the executive session. The remote participant shall state at the start of any such session that no other person is present or able to hear the discussion at the remote location unless presence of that person is approved by a simple majority vote of the public body, and that the session is not being remotely recorded by any device. If technical difficulties arise, the chair should suspend discussion while efforts are made to correct any problem that interferes with remote participants' ability to hear or be heard clearly by all persons at the meeting. If technical difficulties result in a remote participant being disconnected from the meeting, that fact and the time at which the disconnection occurred and subsequent reconnection, if achieved, shall be noted in the meeting minutes. If a public hearing occurs after disconnection, the member shall be noted as absent. The open meeting law allows public bodies to conduct closed or executive meetings in certain circumstances. The notice must list executive session if executive session is anticipated. You have to first convene an open session and state publicly the purpose of the executive session with the majority of members, stating all subjects that may be revealed without compromising the purpose for which the executive session was called. Then you would take and record roll call to go into executive session, announce if open session will reconvene afterward, maintain exhibits and documents used in reasonable proximity to minutes, and only discuss matters cited, and take all votes by roll call. If executive session is anticipated, it must be listed in appropriate detail on the meeting notice with such specificity as possible without compromising the purpose of the session. Related vote to enter executive session must also include all information possible without compromising the purpose of the session. Example, the name of, if it's a non-union personnel or union, must be identified in the notice, and vote if bargaining or negotiations will be conducted. The case name to be discussed under litigation strategy must be listed unless doing so would compromise the town's position, and a declaration must be made as needed. Open session minutes must be created and approved in a timely manner. The new regulations provide that approval must occur generally within the next 3 meetings or within 30 days, whichever is later. Minutes of open meetings are public records as of the moment of their creation, regardless of whether they have been approved. Oh, that's a little tiny approved. Upon request, minutes must be made available within 10 days. If you're providing a draft of the minutes, you have to make a notation, draft subject to revision. It must state the date, the time, the place of the meeting, and a list of the members present or absent. Include a summary of discussion of each topic, decisions made, and actions taken, including a record of all votes. Secret ballots are explicitly prohibited. The list of documents and other exhibits used by the body at the meeting, including by remote participants. The names of any member who participated remotely and the reason for remote participation. Documents and exhibits used by the public body must be retained with the public body, but do not need to be physically stored with the meeting minutes. They may be, for executive session minutes, they may be withheld until the purpose of the exemption has been met unless otherwise protected under the Public Records Law. The chair of the public body directed to review executive session minutes periodically and bring to the body for its approval minutes for which the purpose of the executive session has expired. You can approve an executive session either under purpose for which session was originally held, or if more than one purpose, under exemption 7, referencing law that allows the same. You must provide a response to a request for executive session within 10 calendar days. Executive session records must be disclosed once publication will no longer defeat the purpose for having entered into an executive session unless exempt from disclosure. Open meeting law complaints. Complaints shall be filed in writing with the public body, chair, within 30 days of the alleged violation or the date that complainant could reasonably have known of the violation. The complainant must file a complaint form, which is available on the Attorney General's website. I actually printed one out. I don't know if anybody's ever seen one, because I don't think you have ever experienced a complaint. I'll just pass it around, but yes, that's right. Sorry about that. The chair, if you were to receive a complaint, the chair must disseminate the complaint to members of the public body. The matter must appear on the meeting notice. The body must acknowledge receipt of the complaint and file it with the town clerk. Should deliberate concerning allegations and possible resolutions. Vote to resolve the complaint. To be considered timely, complaints must be filed with the Attorney General within 90 days of the date of the original alleged violation. And the Attorney General will not review allegations that were not raised in the initial complaint filed with the public body. All complaints are considered public records. Now, there's, a lot of you have used the new portal for public records. There's a new conflict of interest law online training program and learning platform where members will complete required training and also read and acknowledge the summary of the conflict of interest law. So every 2 years, all members are required to complete the conflict of interest training online program. And then annually in December of each year, you'll get a reminder email to go back into the training platform, and you'll have to review the summary of the conflict of interest law. And you click into the box and it brings you through a few pages, and then you have the same, you put your name, your organization, and then the certificate will pop up. And you don't have to send those back to me because they're saved in the system. So there's no more paper, which we like. So that's it there. I can, if you wanted to, I could go through a little bit of ethics. Do you have time to go through that, or are you all comfortable with?
It's a very ethical board.
Okay. And, you know, a lot of it, when you did your training, you were prompted to write some reminders. And basically, you just don't get yourself stuck in a situation where, you know, maybe if you're involved in, you know, let's just say something on your board and maybe something, a property that you're involved in, you know, if you want to disclose anything that could potentially be a conflict. So if you felt like there was a conflict, you would get in touch with George. He would get in touch with myself or our town council, Pat Ahern, and we'd have you file a disclosure. Does anybody have any questions? I think this is a great board. I think you all
Dottie, thank you
follow.
very, very much, and everybody does
Yes.
have to go through the ethics training. Hi, Jim, welcome. So thank you, as usual.
Yes, and I
Dottie,
think
okay.
most of you, have done the training, but whoever hasn't, I'll send you out a message. So that's it.
Thank you, Dottie.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, with that, we're going to move on.
So there's only one other thing I just want to mention too. If you feel like you may have some kind of there's an issue that might involve, you know, ethics in any way, you always go right to the source. You go to the ethics, the state ethics. There's a lawyer of the day. You know, they're there to, if you have any wonder if there's something, you know, that could be potentially an issue, they will give you an answer. So, that's it, and thank you.
Thank
Can I
you.
follow? I'm sorry I'm late, but had one question for you.
Sure.
Does all of this apply only after the warrant's open or in session, or does it apply year-round?
For open meeting law?
Right,
Oh, year-round.
year-round, so if
All
we were
meetings.
just to, I mean, after town meeting's over and we were just to get together on a
Oh, you can do that. I mean, you can get together socially. That's not a problem at all. It's if you were going as a board to a meeting.
Okay,
You know, if you were going to you can go to a meeting and you can, as a citizen, as a resident of the town, you can, you know, definitely ask questions and give your opinions, but you can't do anything that would come across your board.
Jim, are you asking in the context of discussing finance commission matters, like business?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that would.
It's a good question.
If
We
there's-
may wanna,
Yeah, if there's nothing pending before us,
Well, the open meeting law says that as a board, you can go out socially, but you shouldn't really be discussing anything that's
if
come
the
across
warrant article's not open, there's nothing before us, so,
But you're still a board that's appointed by the town, by the select board.
and then how do you determine, which, like you said, we can be at
I
a
mean,
select board meeting, how do we determine which hat we're wearing? Are we there as a private citizen, or are we there as a,
if you're going as a private citizen, you go and you ask questions but so basically, what is the scenario you're thinking about besides,
not thinking of any specific scenario, just, you know, in general, say, 8 of us show up at a FinCom meeting, and, I mean, not a at a planning board meeting or a select board meeting,
if you,
the perception could be that we're there as FinCom members, but in actuality, we could be there as private citizens.
I mean, you shouldn't honestly, because of the appearance that it would give, and you are appointed to be on a board, you shouldn't all sit together. It just, the appearance wouldn't look right. You know, you can go and, you know, you can ask questions and discuss whatever you'd like, but if you decided that the whole, you know, half of the board was gonna, let's say a majority of the board was gonna go, and you might all have some questions that might pertain to what you do here, then you have to post the meeting, you should post the meeting. But if
Okay,
you're
then-
just going as a citizen, I mean, there's probably a lot of things that are gonna come up within the next, you know, month or so. I mean, look at Canton Street sidewalks, I'm sure most of you will go to that open session, so that's fine. You're not gonna go there as a member of FinCom.
Yeah,
You're
I'm
gonna-
glad you brought that up because, so I had a gathering this weekend. There were the 3 members of the FinCom were there. We were not having a FinCom. We were all unofficially together, but we were talking about stuff. We were talking about Canton Street. That's not a violation. We were private citizens, happened to be together. If I see you at Costco's and we get a hot dog and a Coke and we start talking about the FinCon stuff, I don't think that's a violation, is it?
No, I mean, the whole thing, think about it, for the Attorney General, it's a perception, and there's always gonna be somebody out there that's gonna, you know, think there's more of the situation than there is, and they may say there's a violation. I saw a couple FinCom members, and they were talking
But-
about, you know,
what
So
I would
just-
add, what I
so-
would add to that.
so use
I think-
common
Dottie,
sense.
I think Jim raised a very interesting point. I think if there is a matter in front of the FinCom via a warrant article, that's a very, very different situation than members getting together when town meeting is over and discussing an issue that that we do not know if it's gonna come in front of town meeting. So for example, 3 members were having a barbecue and they wanted to talk about the Canton Street sidewalk project, I wouldn't have an issue with that. Number one, there's nothing in front of the FinCom.
and it's not a quorum either,
Right, okay.
so,
So
and that's it.
my
Always think
sense.
about that, the
Yeah.
quorum. If it's not a quorum.
We are citizens, and we have a right to attend, and I think if you're ever at a meeting, you're uncomfortable, state, I am here, and stating my opinion as a citizen, not as a FinCom member.
Exactly,
Okay?
exactly.
That's the
And
way I
and
would.
that's a good rule of thumb, too.
Yeah.
If you're gonna give an opinion, you know, you're not giving an opinion as a FinCom member,
Right.
as a resident of Westwood.
Okay. Yeah, go through the ethics training. It's not the easiest thing to understand.
Yeah, I mean-
You know, so, but we'll do it.
I mean, a lot of it, you know, really, it's perception, and, you know, a lot of it's common sense.
Right. All right, Dottie, once again, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm going to give you the chair's update. One of the things I wanted to talk about is we'd like to stay with the new subcommittee structure we started last year. The general feedback I've had is it worked fairly well. Everybody really was involved in doing something. So I'd like you to think about what committees you'd like to be involved in, and frankly, let us know, are you interested in chairing one? I really want to get some input from you. We'll caucus, we'll then talk with you, okay? But, I think the structure worked really well. We got a lot of compliments, frankly, on also setting up a separate capital group and dealing with all the capital items at once. I think that really was a good step forward in terms of getting a broad perspective of the budget. The other thing I wanted to talk about is I have always been amazed at town meeting that somebody will get up if an article or a borrowing article is brought before the citizens, and somebody will always ask, well, what else is there? What other needs does the town have? So one of the things I want us to start thinking about as we go through this budget year is creating some context. So if we are aware that through the 5-year capital plan or through the long-range financial planning committee, that there are 6 or 7 projects the town is looking at. If we have a warrant article addressing one, okay, I think we need to look at the financial implications of that, but in the context of the other articles, or potential other articles. So I've thought about putting a financial model together. I've actually asked George Maroon to work with me on it. Chris has given me some input. We'll come up with a framework, and then we'll bring it back for the board for discussion to see if it makes sense. But that way, what it does, I think we have so many challenges in front of us as a town, especially on the capital side. And now, given the rising interest rate environment, I just want to make sure that when we fund something, that we and the citizens are aware, here's the short-term impact, here's the long-term impact, and here's what it may affect, what we can or cannot do in the future. So that's something I will work on. And then, George, I figured as a banker, Mr. Maroon could keep me level-headed and give me some guidance on how to do this. One of the things I do, even over the summer, is I do watch the select board meetings, and I do watch the long-range financial planning meetings, since we really can't have a formal representative on there. And the reports I can give you, now you may be aware of some of this, but the Select Board has authorized the use of up to approximately $400,000 of overtime for the fire department to go to permanent staffing of 11 firefighters. There was some concern at night that we were not able to get sufficient staff on board because we don't have enough firefighters. So they decided to solve it by authorizing overtime. So they will have 11 qualified members of the fire department, hopefully on duty at all times. The longer-term solution, and I don't know if you had a chance to look at the Criterion study on the operational study of the fire department, but the bottom line, it has recommended that we permanently go to 11 firefighters for Westwood to meet not only its current, but frankly, the anticipated need over the next 5 to 10 years. So it means that we have to hire 4 more firefighters. A grant has been applied. The fire department, the chief, in working with the town manager, they have applied for a 3-year grant, which will fund positions up to 3 years. I think it funds the base salary of a firefighter for 3 years. The town then has to be willing to absorb that. Hopefully, we will get that grant. If we don't get that grant, the funding of those additional firefighters clearly is going to be an FY25 budget issue for us to address. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. If you get a chance, read the Criterion analysis. It's fairly interesting. And it's also reassuring at the end of the day to be properly staffed. And the majority of our calls are medical, but to be properly staffed and take care of our citizenry, if we get to 11, we're fairly well taken care of as a town. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is Dora Whittier, the architectural consultant we've used. They should complete the feasibility study of the new fire station by October 11th. And the bottom line is they looked at multiple sites. It looks like the recommendation is to take down the existing main structure, to rebuild the main fire station there. Of course, if you do that, there's going to have to be a temporary facility, which many towns have done, to operate. The select board has to consider at its October 23rd meeting how to proceed with a 6-month design phase of the project for Dorn Whittier. If you can get through that, you will then be able to go out to bid for a new fire station. The select board is looking at potentially using some flexible ARPA funds. There are some ARPA funds that give us total flexibility how we use it, and yet they will also have to use some additional town funding. And I think we will know at the October 23rd meeting what their plans are. Yes.
So this was a question that came up when we were doing the school override a few years back. They had spent money in advance, and then they had to do an override to cover the basis, and everybody said, well, you already spent money in it previously, and now you have to do an override. Is that the path for
No,
this?
no, that's not the path. This is on the, well, there's two issues, George. On using overtime, to fund the 4 firefighters, that we are basically saying we gotta solve that in the FY25 operating budget.
Yeah, that's 400,000,
Right,
yeah.
but in terms of the funding that's necessary to complete the design work,
The feasibility study
Right,
for a
they-
new station, but would
yeah.
a new station require an override?
well, given the cost estimates, I think absolutely require an override.
So it's essentially the same thing. We're gonna spend some money to figure out if we need to do it, and then if we decide to do it, it'll be a 2.5 override.
If the town votes to do it, there would be a borrowing article that would require an override, yes. Okay? Last thing I want to mention, and Dottie mentioned this, if you get a chance, I would recommend you attend the MassDOT Canton Street Corridor Project public meeting 9/28 at the Downey School. My understanding is that this is, there are a lot of issues and concerns around this. I do not know to what impact it will have on the FinCom, but I think it's worthwhile attending and seeing what the concerns are. And for those of you, the background is the town provided $900,000 to get the study underway. The state, there is a proposal the state will provide a substantial amount of funding of 18+ million, but the design that they are proposing has significant impact on the neighborhood. So I think it's worthwhile for those of us who can going and listening to understanding what the concerns are. So, anybody have any questions on my comments? And then before I turn it over to Chris?
If I may, on the Canton Street project, I heard too that any eminent domain issues are on the town, not in the state. Do you know that for?
I think you are right. That's what I have heard, but I don't have anything official that if property has to be taken to build the structure they're talking about, that would be an obligation of the town.
And there will be property that will need to be taken.
Yeah.
There's no question on that.
So I think, I think it's worthwhile going and listening to what the concerns of the citizens are on the issue. It's one of the reasons I want to attend. I don't know if there's going to be an article in front of us, but I certainly I think it's important to hear what the concerns of the citizens are, especially in that neighborhood.
So if 8 of us go, don't sit together.
Good point. All right, Chris, turn it
Well,
over
I
to you.
think if we're going with, direction from FinCom, I think we just need to post it, and then we can sit together. I mean, we could theoretically do that.
I don't think the FinCom should give any direction on it right now.
All I'm saying is that, it's just a disclosure element. And if we're going and we're saying, hey, we should go to this meeting, we can simply post that we're gonna have members there. So again, I think it's just a matter of notice as opposed to whether or not we should.
Let me do this. Let me check with town council.
Sure.
Okay, Pat, see what he recommends. I'm suggesting you go as residents and citizens.
I'm
Okay.
going as a citizen.
Yeah.
That's fair.
and that's the way I would attend to, but the question I will ask Pat is, Pat Ahern, is if we have a reasonable number of FinCom members as who are also residents who want to attend this session, even as Dottie recommended, is just something we need to post, okay?
Yeah, and George, I think when we're giving direction that it's recommended that we attend a particular meeting for FinCom, if we're gonna have
Okay.
more than quorum, I think that's a good question for
Yeah,
Pat as well.
I will go to Pat and we'll get back to you fairly quickly.
Just be aware, if you do go down that path, then there has to be minutes, and you have to invite the public, and, so there's a whole set of,
Totally
Yeah,
understand.
just to be aware of it,
Yeah, I mean, look, my thought is that we should be going as residents to learn, okay? Right now, there is nothing in front of us, but if Pat deems,
Yeah.
and the fact is that we are disclosing that we are going as residents, the fact is we're disclosing it. And a lot of times you can deal with a potential conflict just by disclosing it.
I think this also traces back, and I'm not a veteran here like George or Mr. Parita. I mean, it hasn't been around that long, but a few years ago, I brought up an issue. We had a member of the FinCom go against what the FinCom had decided, and then went and publicly said, I'm on the FinCom and this is my opinion. That is the exact opposite of what should happen. Like if I didn't, I'll use the sidewalk example. If I'm not a fan of the sidewalk, I'm going to this meeting, I'm gonna say, my name is George Laham, I live here. I'm not gonna mention I'm a FinCom member, I'm gonna speak
As a citizen?
as on my own.
Yeah.
Because we came back, George, do you remember what I'm talking about a few
Yeah.
years ago?
And look,
We need to
this is-
speak as a team.
This is posted on the town's website as a meeting, okay? And so listen, I think you're, a good point. I will go to Pat Ahern and I will ask him, if we just disclose the fact that we will be attending there, or does he want us to post something? I'll ask him.
I think the point I made though is when we're giving guidance to go to a particular meeting as FinCom, and then, we're gonna be deliberating on it, that's the question for Pat.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that warrant, public notice, thus, following through with everything?
Okay, I will ask Pat about that. Do you have any some comments you want to make? Oh, I'm sorry.
I just have, I listened to the long range, I listened to a lot of that
Yeah.
stuff, and it seems like there's a lot of financial needs of the town, and you can't pick them all. There's a fire station, there's Sheehan, there's a roof at the middle school, and then I still don't fully understand everything with hail. I think it would be helpful, especially with the hail thing, because the way I heard it, it sounded to me like there's a
Hold
tax
it-
already
hold-
there that they
hold
can
that
hit you
thought.
with. Okay,
Hold that thought.
all right, I'll let you go there, and then,
That was a good feed-in.
but I
That
saw
was
the
good
law.
rolling.
That was perfect.
It's perfect.
Segue.
There you go.
So, just a couple of comments. First of all, if you go into this Canton Street meeting, remember that nothing is often a very good thing to say. And that you don't have to worry about whether you're there as a citizen or there at the FinCom. If we're there to learn, then I just listen and I don't refrain from saying anything. All right, so, Vice Chair's update. George and I met during the summer, and we decided that as far as the hail thing was concerned, that he asked me to run the discussions in all the meetings that are specific for hail. So the update right now, substantively, there is no update. Because, as you recall, the select board had charged the town administrator, Chris Coleman, and the town council, Pat Ahern, with negotiating on behalf of the town of Westwood with Hale and the town of Dover and the trustees of reservations to hammer out this conservation restriction that Hale was selling to the town. Those negotiations are ongoing, so there's nothing before the FinCom to look at. Procedurally, though, there are a couple of things that we need to keep in mind. The select board over the summer has authorized town administrator to release the draft, and the emphasis is on the word draft, release the draft of the CR at his discretion. Now, the timing of the release is also a point of negotiation with Dover and the trustees and Hale. All right? So right now, there's nothing that has been released. As I understand it, negotiations over the substance are still ongoing. So obviously, if that's still ongoing, they're not going to release a draft. But when you do see something, and you might see it on the Westwood website, you might see it on the Dover website, you might see it on the Hale website, know that whatever you see is not something that the Select Board of Westwood has put their stamp of approval on. It is still in draft form and very much subject to change. And whatever information, and I'll make the comment that whatever information you see from Hale, and I've seen a couple of things from Hale, please take it with a grain of salt that this is marketing information or aspirational information and not something that represents the position of the town of Westwood. All right. So right now, there's nothing before us. And whether or not there will be something before us, who knows? Because right now, they're still negotiating the draft of the CR. That leads me to the point, and it relates to what George said. When something happens, it might happen very quickly. And we already know that it's likely, because of the urgency of the fire station, we already know that it's more likely than not that the select board is going to want to proceed with this 6-month design phase of the new fire station as quickly as possible in order to get a bid out as quickly as possible. Because in today's environment, every month that you wait, the cost will go up. Right? So it's more likely than not that we're going to see a special town meeting between now and next spring's regularly scheduled town meeting. If that special town meeting is strictly on the fire station, we may be able to put our discussions of that single warrant article into our regularly scheduled meetings. We may, however, have to schedule another fall town meeting beginning of December, end of November, that time frame. We'll let you know as soon as we know. As George said, the select board hasn't even decided how they're going to do this and won't until late October. So that's on the table, right? More likely than not, we're going to have a special town meeting. Whether that requires us, the FinCom, to have an additional scheduled meeting, that's up in the air, but be alert that that's the fact.
Excuse me a minute.
Yeah.
Do the same rules apply that we have to, the warrant, we have to vote on the warrant so many days or weeks before the warrant article's published in the meeting? So if you're talking a late October, you're probably not even talking about a special meeting until January.
Correct, and yes, they do.
Okay.
Right? And the biggest limiting factor, oddly enough, is printing of the material and distributing it to the town. So that has to occur in, our vote and our write-up of that warrant article has to occur sufficient time in advance of the special town meeting in order to get all that material out to the residents. And we have to have at least one, if the special town meeting is just on the fire station issues, then it's probably not going to be controversial. We'll probably have one meeting to discuss the issue and one meeting to vote on the issue. But, and this is the lead into Hale, we don't know how Hale is going to work out. And if Hale comes along and the select board decides in their infinite wisdom that they're going to include Hale in a special town meeting, then all bets are off. We're going to have, George and I have looked at it, and we decided that it's best to keep discussions of Hale separate from our discussions of the fiscal year 25 budget process. So if that occurs, then we will have additional meetings that will be limited to just Hale. But as of right now, there are no such meetings, and I would say it's not more likely than not that we would have it. Is that a double negative?
You can do it, go
That
ahead,
it
that's fine.
is less likely than not that we would have that.
Not gonna,
Yeah. If you get my meaning, okay? So that's the update on Hale. And the important thing to remember, the takeaway is, if you see a conservation restriction document posted online, realize that it is in draft form. It has not been approved by the Westwood Select Board. It is subject to change.
That being said, if
That's all I
something
have. Questions?
yeah, I'm sorry. That being said, if something breaks, it'll be circulated to the FinCom.
Yeah,
We won't be looking for it.
if something, I just want to give you a heads up that, Victoria will be sending out messages if something breaks so that we can get this scheduled and get it
Yeah,
on.
and what I would add is,
I didn't mean to not look at you all the time, but
It's fine. Over here in my
I have to look at my audience. Yeah, so that's all I have. Any questions?
I just have a comment I will add, and that is, first of all, to what Bill said. Bill, I reacted the same way you did in looking at the long-range financial planning. Just taking, what we're probably gonna do, working with George Maroon, is I'm gonna take their order, I'm not gonna change any of their order, I'm gonna take their numbers. I think some of those numbers are gonna change, but just modeling that out will create a framework and get to the exact point you said. There's a lot of demand on the town. And I think it would make me feel good as a FinCom is if a particular item comes up, we can create the context for the town to analyze it. Okay, because, and the demands are varying. I mean, how do you measure, a fire station? You got a senior center, you've got a whole range of things that need to be addressed. Okay, my sense is we clearly will, there is urgency to the fire station. I think everybody in town understands that this is not a good place. This building is not in good condition, and, we really need to do something. So I think there is urgency to that, and my sense is we will be dealing with that. Okay.
I know we're not supposed to talk about contracts and unions. Do they have a contract
Yeah,
yet?
they're all done.
Yeah, they're all done.
Oh, they did finish?
Yeah, everything's done. Yeah, everything's done. I think.
Signs are still around the town.
I know, I can't.
For the contract.
Yeah, so I had no idea.
Just FYI, there is a sign bylaw in town, so they should have been removed within, fairly quickly after the whole thing was done.
When was the thing wrapped up? When was the contract wrapped up?
Oh my gosh, I
What
think-
month?
In the springtime,
You're kidding me.
no.
And they have to, I actually spoke with, George, I spoke with Molly, they will post the contract online. There's a lot of data they've got to go in and adjust and correct, so all of it's consistent with, because they were doing different years, that will be posted online.
It's gonna be necessary when we do our budgets this year, because that's gonna be a big part of it.
Right.
It was after town meeting, though.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it was after town, they were picketing out.
Yeah, that's how,
Yeah, the other thing I'll say is, I think if we are just dealing with the fire station, I'm absolutely convinced it is a process we can manage very smoothly within within our existing schedule. It might add one meeting date, and we can figure it out. I'm not gonna touch the other issue, that's Chris's responsibility. If that comes up, that's a totally different scenario for us. Okay, is there any, do you want to talk about the onboarding document?
Oh, yes, thank you. I had that note, I missed it. I made a mental note, but I lost it. I think you all got, Victoria, you circulated that
Yes.
draft. Okay, so you all got a draft of our onboarding document. It's a document to try to describe what it is to be a FinCom member, how we fit into town government, what the government process is. Take a look at it, give your comments back to Victoria. We want to finalize this thing, and hopefully it'll actually work not only as a informational tool for new members, but also as a recruiting document, because it will be out there, and people will see it, and they'll say, oh, gee whiz, this is what the FinCom does? I want to be a member. So that'll help out the town moderator in looking for new members.
So I'm not sure a lot of people are beating down the door to make a member.
there's our mark, no.
No, but Victoria and Chris and Victoria put a lot of work into that, and it was one of the assignments I asked Victoria to take on, and I think it actually does for the first time. If somebody says, well, tell me about FinCom, it actually is a little expose in terms of how town government works, which is sort of nice.
So take a look at that,
And-
give your comments to Victoria, and then at the next meeting, we can finalize it.
Okay. With that, let's see, is there any other topics or issues or concerns that members want to talk about?
Can I offer 2 comments?
Of course you
Getting
may.
into the budget season.
Yes.
One, consistently, we have free cash of excess of $1 million. Is it possible to get an actual budget? So, the budget closed June 30th, and now it's all being approved by the state. Can we actually see where the money was spent and where the extra money came back from? Is that possible to get it?
It sounds like it should be possible, but I'm trying to think specifically, what are we asking for?
Well, the actual
Yeah, the-
budget. So
As spent, how it's spent.
And the as-spent numbers for each of the line items.
Yes,
So
yeah.
We
we know
will
if
put,
invoice.
somebody's maybe, since we're gonna be looking to find money next year, maybe we can tighten up a little.
I think what I would ask
tighten a little budget.
Victoria to do is to send a request to Stephanie and saying, can we get, I call it, I know they do a year-end reconciliation because they actually talked about it in one of the presentations they made to the select board. But you want to see how is the money actually spent compared to the budget?
It would be,
Actuals.
it's called
Yeah.
actual
Yeah.
versus budget.
Actual versus budget.
It's-
Okay.
It's very standard.
Yep.
All right, and the second request is, I think you did municipal last year?
Last, yep.
And Weston did a great job, because he sat down, he met with everybody. What I'm gonna recommend is if we can possibly get department heads in front of the whole committee and hear from them. and
That was a
then
disaster last year. And
Meeting with all the individuals,
and it was very,
labor intensive.
I don't want to
Time-consuming.
jump on George, because I know he did an outstanding job supporting the FinCom subcommittee, and he backed us up, but we went through it, and it was not what, and in my opinion, as a FinCom member, as my opinion, it was not well received.
Well received by,
It was such a shock. It was the first time it had ever been looked at the way we looked at it. We went line by line and spoke to each department head. Nobody, there was no trail for us. There was no, roadmap. The municipal employees who were there, because we asked for every department head to be there, they had no idea that we were gonna ask them questions.
But don't you think that's our responsibility? I think you were.
You're damn right I do,
Great
and that's
job.
why I did it. But
we
poor
need to do-
George had to back us up. He caught hell.
We,
No,
we
no,
need to do a better job managing their expectations. That's what you're saying.
Right, set the right expectations with them. of
yeah,
what
I
you
think
want
there's
or-
two levels of detail, and we have to figure out the right way to approach it. If you want to go line by line through a department's budget, I actually think that that's a sit-down, most likely with Stephanie, who is responsible for going through the line item by line item. The intent of having the department heads there, very honestly, was not to have that session be a line item by line item discussion, it was to give them some exposure, to hear from them. So maybe my thought, should be, is we ought to think about the process, and I will probably talk with Stephanie about it. If that municipal committee wants to go through and ask line-by-line questions, we should sit down with Stephanie. She's responsible for preparing the budgets. When you sit down with department heads, it's more of giving them a chance to explain to us what they do, okay? And maybe some of what their concerns are, okay? Because I really think that the line-by-line, for the smaller departments, that really should be directed to Stephanie.
Yeah, it brought to light people's salaries that not everybody knew about, and that was
Well,
uncomfortable.
yeah, we gotta be careful about that.
And that was uncomfortable, and
Yeah.
it was an issue. And in my mind, it's public information, why did something change? And a lot of the municipal departments were completely restructured last year.
So here's my thought, George. It probably
But
involves.
I'm not gonna be on that committee this year, so
You
don't
don't
worry.
know.
I'm telling you I'm not. I'm telling you very clearly.
I was
Noted, George.
department heads.
But no, the thought is the following. What we'll probably do is there probably needs to be two levels of sit down. One is with Stephanie, to go through individual budgets line by line. With her, if you want to ask, particular questions about salary, that's fine to ask it. I think the meeting with the department heads is to learn about what they do and give them some exposure, and not put people in the position of, why is Chris,
Yes.
I don't-
Why did one person get a 40% increase and
so
one
I
person
think
get a 2?
we'll work with Stephanie to smooth that process out, okay?
But I was gonna suggest if we have the department heads in front of the whole board to paint broad strokes and give everyone an overview what's going on.
That would be ugly.
And then, if you have to get into the nitty gritty, you can do that with Stephanie. But I think, if they're coming forward and saying, I wanna buy, 80,000 XYZ,
Well, we the big departments do come in front of us.
the big departments.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know if some of them.
There were 14 different
And-
departments.
and they've
And you
restructured-
shouldn't just have 2 people. Whoever you guys decide to put on it, I know it won't be me,
Let
but
me.
have more than 2 people.
Yeah, let me think about the process. I think what I'd like to do is meet two needs. One is to allow questions to be asked. If you want to get down to the line by line, probably through Stephanie. And then what's a forum for, is it the subcommittee that meets with the department heads? Let's think that through, okay?
But I think the rest of the board misses a lot if just the subcommittees are meeting with them.
That's true with any committee, though, Jim.
That's
what I'm
saying.
Yeah.
The board misses meeting with the fire because the fire
And the
subcommittee
school,
or the
yeah.
school, something, I mean,
Agreed.
we could have an extra meeting to meet with everybody?
No, I think we'll, look, the whole purpose, look, there are two responsibilities of the subcommittees. One is to get in, analyze, and make a recommendation and a written report, and your presentation to us, but also to do the written report that goes into, and goes into the report to the town.
Yeah.
So I think we can't, I mean, the reason of having the subcommittees is to divide up the work, okay? And if people have a particular interest in one area versus the other, let us know and we'll put you on that committee,
Jim, I
okay?
think you should do that.
Been there, done it.
Maybe last year was the first year we had it.
A compromise
No, we
where,
did.
We
Municipal
did
committee.
municipal.
Yes,
It was
Mike?
a different structure.
guys, maybe there's a compromise where if we're doing the subcommittee effort and we identify a very, potentially, contentious item or something of that nature, maybe we make a recommendation to bring that, one of the 14 or, one of the other groups in front of the FinCom sooner than the subcommittee reporting. So maybe there's some sort of a balance where we're identifying something that, quite frankly, is a little bigger than a 2-3 person committee, and we'd like to have representation in front of FinCom.
Okay.
So I
I'll
think
give
that
it
might
some thought.
be a compromise. I don't know, Jim, if that.
I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted.
That's fine. I'm saying maybe a compromise is, as we're going through these subcommittee meetings, if we're identifying a particularly contentious item or something that we feel needs to be brought before FinCom before we, the subcommittee, make our presentation, maybe then we come back and we ask that group to meet at the next meeting. So something of that nature where.
We will work on a process that I think both allows us to get into detail, respects the privacy issue that I think has come up, and gives the department heads, some exposure. But I don't want to turn that into, it's not a, how do I describe this? This is not a hearing in front of Congress.
I don't wanna
Okay,
micro-
and I don't want to put these people in that position. We've dealt with the big departments, and it's worked out fairly well, and the fact that we separated out the capital from the operating, but it was a learning experience. You've given me some good feedback, and let me give some thought about it, and whoever does volunteer for that municipal committee, I think Chris and I will sit down with that group, and let's talk about how you want to handle it, okay? So we make it clear up front, okay?
Well, I guess more to the point, I guess anyone that's asking for a significant amount of money outside of salaries should have to
Well, they have to
explain.
but they have to justify that to,
Well, a perfect example would be, call it the Housing Authority. They haven't really been in front of us, and yet, for the last couple of years, we've seen numbers pop up, and somebody else is doing their explaining. I think the head of the Housing Authority should do the explaining.
They didn't ask for any money last year, no.
They did, but it was removed. I think they asked for another $25,000, and the select board didn't give it to them.
Taken out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
look, you're also walking a very fine line between the role of the town in putting together its budget recommendations and our oversight function. And I think last year, there were some rough edges last year. We'll try and smooth them out, okay? But I'd rather try and have a process where we have some interaction with every department head, whether they're small or large. We listen to what their needs are. On the other hand, I gotta respect, the ability of the town to put together its budget. And to take Waha for an example, I think it's appropriate for us to ask the town administrator or the town finance, assistant town manager, administrator, we understand $25,000 was recommended, why didn't it go through? So those things you can flush out and ask questions. I think you gotta be, and I just have to figure out what's the right way to do it in the right part of the process.
I think there's an evolution every year, and you always have to look at, like we are, right, what worked and what didn't
Yeah.
work. And the new structure worked. We made a lot of headway in a lot of things last year.
Yep.
But we still ran into some of the same bumps at the end where they tried to bundle too many things together, or they came in front of us and didn't have clear numbers, and it almost killed warrant articles.
Yeah. I actually think the to me, probably the most success was separating out the capital from the operating budget.
I agree.
And that, to me, I would say was
That was
a
helpful.
home
That
run
was-
all around. I think it was a bit bumpy on the new municipal committee we set up, and I'm committed to working through both with our folks and with the town to make sure we smooth that process out. The other thing I'm hearing here is, you know, if something were requested and we think it was significant and it didn't go through, somewhere along the line, we'd like to understand why. Okay, I think it's fairly important. Okay, any other questions, comments, issues?
Old business? Is this-
I will get to old business right now. Any other priorities? If we're all done with that, is there any old business?
So this board requested that Mr. Coleman come back to us with a idea. He gave us a rough number
Right.
for tax collector and town treasurer. I missed the boat on the vote for the firemen, but I don't want to miss the boat on this. He was supposed to come back to us. Has he come back to anybody yet?
I don't think he's fully decided how to staff those positions.
Did he get approved by the state? Did we get approved by the state? Because I know it came to us for a vote to make it an appointed.
That may not have happened, I don't know,
Because it was, the first step was for the FinCom to approve the town tax collector and town treasurer.
Charter, it was the amendment to
charter,
the charter.
yeah.
So we have to find, the question is, what's
Home
the
rule
status,
petition,
what's the
right.
status of that home rule petition?
Because I don't want
Right.
that to,
But we did, in our write-up, specifically state
we did.
that in the FY '25 budget, we would be addressing this issue because we were concerned about salary. And, no, very appropriate issue. I think we can get a quick answer
Yeah,
on the,
just don't want to fall through the cracks.
what's the status of the home rule petition? Any other old business? Now, we have to go through our minutes, right?
Well, just wanted to point out that we did revise the meeting schedule. I did note that our next meeting moved from October 11th to the 10th in order to accommodate the select board.
That's a Sunday. Oh, no.
No, it's a
2024,
Tuesday.
George.
It's day after
2023,
Columbus
George.
Day.
It's Tuesday.
Yeah, we did
Yeah.
that. It was a request from the select board. We accommodated it. The problem is that we still needed to make sure we had a meeting that week. I didn't want to miss a week.
You want to mention it's in person? You want to mention that it's in person?
Yes. And that meeting will also, that's the meeting where we have, frankly, the select board, the school committee coming in front of us, right? As I recall, Chris, let me get it right.
Yes.
Yes, so that is going to be an in-person meeting. And then I think we talked about last year that the public meetings and the public hearings would be in person. We will make a decision, we can talk about it at that October meeting, how folks feel about meeting in person, or do you want to go remote for part of the year? Okay? We will leave that open.
Will the new superintendent come?
Yes.
Or just
For the next meeting, yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Actually, Chris and I went and we met with him over the summer. Just wanted to introduce ourselves and give him a little bit of an overview of what the FinCom does. Very, very quick study.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, very quick study. So I felt good, about that. Minutes, right? We have to do the minutes.
Roll call.
Roll call. One comment was interesting, listening to Dottie. I would say that our minutes, I think we've set the example for minutes of a board in terms of the quality of our minutes, Victoria, so thank you so very much.
And one comment about minutes, for those people that are watching this after the fact on Westwood Media, even if you're not here, present today for this meeting, if you watch the meeting, then at the next meeting, you can vote on the approval of the minutes.
Yeah, we can. Members can vote on the approval. of minutes.
Yeah.
All right, so can we get a roll call vote? All right, we need a motion to approve the minutes.
A motion to approve the minutes?
Second?
Second.
Bill Bruce,
Yes?
Jim Ferrero,
Yeah, I didn't watch the meeting, I abstained.
Lauren Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Mike Gay,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
Yes.
George Laham,
Yes.
George Maroon,
Yes.
Chris Peretta,
Yes.
and Sean Weller.
Yes.
Okay, just one other comment I want to make before we ask if there's any public and press. Since we had to adjust our schedule, that same night that we're meeting, I believe the planning board is meeting, and Westwood Media Center can only live stream one. So if the public wants to, if they want to see what the FinCom did, they can watch it after the fact. It will be recorded. But we did that to accommodate the select board.
Oh, the planning,
Planning board is going to be,
yeah, planning board's the same, meeting day as us.
right, and so
Yeah,
they can,
okay.
they're going to live stream the planning board, but that means they can't live stream us.
Okay.
They can record us, okay? So I just want to make sure if citizens want to ask questions, they need to actually come in person to that meeting. So any questions to public or press? I don't see any, since it's an in-person meeting. And with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Bill Cruz,
Not so
Yes.
fast.
Jim Ferrero,
Yes?
Mark Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Mike Gay,
Yes.
George Hertz,
Yes.
Angela Hughes,
90,000
George
degrees,
Laham.
nobody wants to leave their house. But yes.
George Maroon,
Yes.
Chris Peretta,
Yes.
and Sean Weller.
Yes.
We are adjourned.
Jared, sure.
You need the.
Oh.
Yeah, right.